St. Paul. Not St. Paul on all right. Yeah, me too. So it's live now. Yeah. So this is cool. I mean, just kind of let it sit for a second. Yeah, that's fine. Like I said, when I come back here, I can see all of it. All right. Let me make my Facebook shareable. I don't know why they don't Instagram just make it shareable. Yeah, I know it's crazy. Making a living, making a living out. Crazy. Like, so good. Yeah. Oh, go to Instagram too. My barber sign. Which one?
Just like
Let me tell you something. I never even noticed that. I never noticed that till you said that.
It's in your heart now, son.
I didn't even notice that. I was like, he just pointed something else out. You know what I mean?
Yep. And so
Yeah, because it's supposed to be a picture of me and my father. You know what I'm saying? Like older picture, we just kind of you know, I mean, you know, but peace to the family. Peace to the family. This is our second week of our, as we call it, mini lecture series. Whatever we get people to come in, you know what I mean, and present their ideas and their books or whatever it is that they may have, and and we talk about it. Y'all can y'all can come in for a discussion. I can bring you in if you want to talk. Giving out the link, so you can join us if you would like to, or you can write something in with your question. It's gonna be a good one today. But before I do that, let me start off coming for you with the mind state of liberation, coming from a long legacy of battle stars and freedom fighters. I acknowledge my duty to truth and justice as a Soul Survivors Nation representative, and I'm a humble servant of my community. Elder, may I have permission to speak? No doubt, no doubt. So, we always start off with our program saying how the Africans feel. And you say spirit is strong, definitely strong, wherever you at. So we'll say how the Africans feel. All right, that's what's up. That's what's up. That's what's up. Spirit is strong, definitely strong. Your spirit must be strong being here in America and all over the world. As black people, it's a lot going on. We live in life, we learning lessons, and you gotta have a strong spirit in order to get through this. Have a strong spirit, you gotta have a strong family, a strong foundation for that to happen. I'm happy to have this brother here today, Brother Kamal. And I always tell the story, and most of you still don't know the story because there would be really no Reality Speaks Survivors Nation if it wasn't for Brother Kamal. This brother went to a school in Baltimore called Mervo, and my sister attended the same school, and they wound up going to a prom together. Well, a few years later in life, I saw him in the bookstore, everyone's place, and I was just getting into the knowledge. And I saw him. I said, "What you doing up here, bro?" He's like, "Oh yeah, man, I'm in here." He had some history books in his hand, and I said, "Oh, okay, man. I'm just starting to do a little reading and stuff myself." He had a study group. He said, "Well, won't you come on out to the study group?" I'm like, "Okay, all right, cool." So I started going to a study group, which is called the African World Study Group, which was my foundation into this whole movement. From there, he had older people in the group, and I said, "Well, look, bro, um, it need to be some younger people in here. I'm the only young person. I mean, he's young himself, but I'm the only. Yeah, we were in our early 20s. Like, we need some more younger people in. So, he said, "Well, why don't you start your own group?" Like, man, I can't start my own group. I ain't got no money. What you talking about? You know what I'm saying? Like, so you don't need money. Just start a group, make a flyer, and recruit people. Get them to come to the group. So he actually designed the first flyers that we had. He took me on my first interview, just you and me talk show. Mama and Zinga and Dr. Hudson during the time, popular show on WEAA. And the brother continued on doing study groups. We continued on doing Soul Vibers Nation Reality Speaks. So this brother here is foundation as one of my teachers and one of the people that will lead me in the direction that I need to go in order to do the things that we've been able to do in the community. So it's a big deal for me. And to be honest, we had some years where what I mean, we ain't talk too much, you know what I'm saying? And maybe, to be honest, wasn't even probably feeling each other too much, you know what I mean, within those years. But life, man, you know what I'm saying? You go back to your foundation and what I mean, life will humble you and you go through some things and something. And me and this brother, we share a lot of things. Like, what I mean, we've both lost our parents, you know what I'm saying? We in that time of our lives and that mid time where we redefining ourselves, and once you lose your parents, man, and for those who haven't lost a parent or your parents, it's a redefining part of your life. Like, you try to figure out, okay, where do I go from here? What is this thing all about? Like, because you've been with somebody for, I know it for me for 40 something years, yeah, your safety net is like gone, like, what I mean, your buffer. So now we trying to find our way. So, we share that and want to be able to help other people because it's a part I watched my mom go through it, lose her parents, and you know what I'm saying? And and that's what people did. This is a whole circle, and we gotta understand it. If we don't understand it, you can go crazy, So that's what it is. So I'm glad to have my big brother here today. And today we're talking about feminism. We're talking about the masculine energy, and it's gonna be, something that some people don't want to talk about, but it's gonna be coming from. We're gonna talk about it, but we're gonna be talking about healing at the same time. So, brothers and sisters, I hope y'all tuned in. I hope you ask your questions. Anybody that want to come in, want to say some comments or whatever you can. But let me bring my big brother up, Kamal Kwabena. Give him a big round of applause, brother. Big Kamal. Let's go. Yeah. Right? Yeah, East side, definitely, definitely. Even though I'm West side now, but I'm back west. I started west though.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You pop. Yeah, I got my little notes right here, and make sure we framed up right with YouTube joint. All right. So I want to give thanks for Baba Jabari and the Soul Vibers Nation that I was fortunate enough to be a part of in its infancy. I'm Baba Kwabena. You know, he can call me Kamal. He know a couple other names I had, but for all intents and purposes, right now we're going with Baba Kwabena. I am a Baltimorean through and through. I've lived here my entire life, except for work. I'm fortunate enough to have a good career where I do some traveling for a living and all that. But so I'm a teacher. I've been a minister as well. I've been a builder, other things. Okay. Yeah, so I've been a builder, a teacher, a designer, and when I went away to university, I came back and said I'm gonna help to develop all of Baltimore, and beginning with a two-pronged approach to develop the mind of the people and to develop the actual buildings of the community. And so I've been on that march since 1991. So I got 33 years in the game of trying to uplift our folks here in Baltimore and abroad. I've done lectures at Coppin, at Morgan, at UMBC, at even Mary Baldwin College, which at the time was an all women's college down in Virginia. I think they're co ed now. I've done Black History supplemental workshops for Anne Arundel County and have been a amateur historian and a lecturer for quite some time. Sort of retired because I wanted to raise my family. But as Baba Jabari mentioned, coming into that second phase or third phase of life where My children are becoming adults, and I'm not blessed to have any young kids like Baba Jabari, but we have aspirations and plans on team. Gotta find the next queen or whatever. But so in that phase of trying to reinvigorate myself and become more active in the community, now that my primary role as a father, uh, it's not over, but it's transitioning to something different. So the title that we came up with was Feminism and the Destruction of the Black Family, right? I had another title called Beyond the Red Pill, but we wanted to give it a little more oomph to it. So we want to go after Chancellor Williams and talk about the destruction, right? So we're talking about feminism and the destruction of the Black family. Now, this could also be called toxic masculinity and the destruction of the Black family. It could be called um, neo-colonialism or postmodern colonialism of Black folks and the destruction of the Black family. It could be called capitalism and the destruction of the Black family. And all these things contribute to where we are now as a people. I was looking at something the other day, and it was a little meme on YouTube or Facebook or something. It said, "Where is the most educated population of Black folks in the country?" Right? So I think Atlanta was number 5. It went down to Raleigh and so forth. The number one most educated and wealthy Black community in the world, can we say it again? In the world, is right here in the Maryland, Virginia, Baltimore area. We have the most educated and wealthy Black folks on the planet. Yeah. As a whole, around the world, you will not see as much wealth and education than you will see anywhere else. But we still do not control much of anything. We still have a great portion of our folks where the education system is failing them, where the social systems are failing them, and it's all coming back to the same root of the problem. And we're going to get to that. But today, we're going to talk about feminism and the destruction of the Black family. And so the first I have my little notes here. We're trying to be technological. Used to have my little pads out and so forth. Thank you, brother. Thank you. Well, we're going to talk about feminism today. So first, as a teacher, I like to get with the definition and root of what things are. So feminism, right, was a real issue. Feminism was a real issue for white women. They could not own property. They, in fact, were almost serfs or slaves almost to the white man. It is what it is. That's history. So some folks like to talk about chattel slavery, which was the Great Maafa, which is the greatest atrocity ever committed to human beings on the planet, bar none. Um, Several hundred years of slavery, chattel slavery, where people often talk about slavery was all over the world. It has never been chattel slavery. Slaves were just people who had to work for somebody, but they never took away their culture, their language, their gods. Um, it was almost like a way to be a caste system. But chattel slavery was a whole unique thing where the person was not looked at as a human being anymore. It's the only form of slavery where they had to dehumanize and say that the enslaved person was not even human. So let's not even get into that. But anyway, so before they enslaved, or the European male enslaved Africans, he enslaved his own woman. I mean, they have a very dominant, male dominant culture. Um, some folks like to say Africa's like that. It is in some regard, but we also have a matrimonial history as well. Um, so that in the 1800s, you had the first wave of feminism where women just wanted equal. They wanted some rights, not equal rights. They wanted some rights. Then it went into the Susan B. Anthony's and the early 1913, 1916s. They wanted women wanted the right to vote, and so feminism initially was to give women rights. So as an African, we have no problem with that. Our queens back in the day, own land and titles. I mean, there was really no separation of what a black man and a black woman could own back in the day, except there were defined roles. We did have masculine and feminine roles, and we still do, and that's what we'd like to return to. But feminism was actually intended as a good thing, to give a great portion of the population rights. Now, we're talking about white women. We're not talking about black women, right? Because initially, the white woman did not even want the black woman involved in the struggle because they did not want the black woman to receive the right to vote. If, if I could I get an amen, if there was an amen up in here, right? So this was a white woman's fight against her oppressor, just like we had also the fight against the same oppressor, right? So we've been here so long, right? We've taken on the folkways and mores of our oppressor, and now their memories have become our nightmares. Their memories have become our nightmares. This was never our issue because black folks as a whole were disenfranchised, both man and woman. So very rarely did either of us have any rights. I think it was the Dred Scott's case said that the government was not beholden to any rights acknowledged by black folks. So we had no rights. So that initial fight of feminism was not about us, right? So then you had second and third wave feminism to now where feminism is not just about equal rights. It is plain and simply about the superiority of women over man, right? And now that's what we call an overcorrection. So you have an initial fight for something good, but then it gets overcorrected, right? And so that now we have this term called toxic masculinity, which doesn't exist. Toxic masculinity was a term derived dealing with prisoners, where sociologists and psychologists in prisons that were dealing with the most violent offenders inside of prisons now noticed that there was some behavior that was a toxic masculinity within prisons. We're talking about the rape and the murder inside of institutionalized persons, which was a psychological or cultural phenomenon in prisons. So now the feminists took that term, which was for a specific purpose, to deal with the psychology of people who have lost their humanity and now try to ascribe those attributes to men who are simply displaying basic, simple attributes of manhood. Now, we talk about the what's that movie? The purple color purple, right? Right. Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark, all the good teachers will talk about how that was held up as such an example of what black men were like. It was the demonization of black malehood, 40 years ago. And so people often say, well, you don't think that existed? Yeah, I'm sure there were some jerk husbands and such, but to color that as even a major portion of what black men were like in terms of the abusiveness and real toxicity and violence that was displayed in that movie, that's not our relationship with our woman. You have toxic human beings, or you have human beings themselves that have traits that are not favorable, women and men. I've said in my life, I've not seen a man beat a woman, but I've definitely seen women beat men, be violent towards men, because we live in a society where they can always call the police, which is another extension of slavery. So we get that whole piece, right? So this new wave of feminism, right, has destroyed the black family because what it has placed as its god, right? We talked about earlier. This could also be called capitalism and the destruction of the black family, because what it has placed as the god for the black community is money, is the dollar. It's the ability, even peace be upon him. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said he wonders if we were integrating into a burning house. Right? They'll tell you this whole pacifist Martin Luther King, but he also was like, we need to go get our check. He was about reparations, but he also was like, I think he said this to Ralph Abernathy. I think we may be integrating into a house that's burning. Right? Um, so with all that being said, feminism, right, has taken the black man out of the house. Of course, with we know about the government and welfare system and how you can't have a man in the home and all those things. So they incentivized women to put men out the house in the 1960s and 70s, right? And that has become the case. The culture has also, which is for a good reason, we want women to be educated because as Elijah Muhammad and Farrakhan said, a culture can rise no higher than its woman. So we have no problem with having our women be educated. The problem is that the value when it comes to courting is not the same. A woman's or anyone's economic value does not necessarily mean that they are also a good marital value, a good marital status, right? So with that dollar now being the god to the black family, right? We have a lack of men and manhood representation inside of the household, and that's for various different reasons, right? We even can talk about how I mentioned that this could be, capitalism, the destruction of the black family, and we can talk about the prison industrial complex being the destruction of the black family because there are lots of reasons why black men weren't in the home. Primarily, it was economic, but it's also some of our own stuff, right? Toxic masculinity. I'm gonna use the word, but we as men, you know, we have our own stuff too. We might drink too much. We might, feel like we can't keep our jobs. We might feel like we're not appreciated. So for various different other reasons, men have our own issues, and we've known that. I think Jawanza Kunjufu started out in the '80s talking about destruction of black boys and black families. I mean, there's so much into this. We can't do this in this little lecture. You see, I'm talking fast because this is a plethora of history behind these things. These things are very nuanced. It's not like we just popped up today and we're in this situation. So for several different reasons, black men are not in the home. And now we have this quote unquote femininity or feminism that is even more estranging the black man from the black woman. Everywhere around, you see these conversations about, what do you bring to the table? Well, I am the table. We in order to date me, you got to take me on a $500 date, the first date. Like the requirements are just silly, right? No one's really, I don't know, maybe people are sitting on the first date saying, well, what do you bring to the table? Right. So these conversations have become exaggerated. And we now have a lack of manhood present in the culture, which to its detriment has gotten our children in a worse kind of way. We see, I think there was a video the other day of some little boy, his mom is at a wedding twerking on some dude, and the little boy had to come up and push the dude off his mama, like, Mama, what are you doing? How can you be out here twerking like that in front of your son, letting a man, gyrate his parts on your hind parts? It's like, so now any type of correction that a man might want to do towards a woman is looked at being toxic. When we are saying we have overcorrected, right? We all have equal rights now. We can all vote. We can all work at places. I mean, I think someone mentioned that there was supposedly a pay gap between men and women. That pay gap is not real. What the pay gap is that, okay? So you could take all women and all men, add up all the money they make, and per capita, men earn more than women. But that has a nuance to it. It's like that because oftentimes women don't go for the really high jobs. Like I work in a profession where with a 4-year degree, you can easily earn six figures within the first 5 to 7 years of graduating university with a 4-year degree. And most time women aren't in that profession. They aren't in engineering. There are some there, but for every hundred men, you might see 20, not even 20 women, 15 women, and one or two of those are going to be black women. And it's just not, women like social sciences typically. And I don't want to generalize, but typically like social sciences and things that aren't so brutal and aggressive. You can go out and become a plumber and earn $100,000. You can go out and become an auto mechanic and earn $100,000. These truck drivers, but you typically don't see women gravitating towards those types of professions. So the pay gap is not really a pay gap; it's really a choice and career choice gap, where, for the most part, women choose careers that just aren't. They don't pay as much. I dated a woman that had 2 degrees. She had a master's degree, and one time I asked her what was what was she? She was looking to get a job, and she's like, "Man, I hope I can get $40,000." Like, you have a master's degree, and you're not earning $40,000. And it amazes me how people put this education, which is good, but we make poor choices in the terms of education versus the value and the cost of it. But anyway, let's not get to that. So now we have a lack of manhood. We have feminism that's sort of attacking masculinity. We have the softening of boys, where people talk about we want our boys to be in touch with their emotions. Yeah, we do. But a man's first role is to respond, right? We deal with our emotions secondary. We respond initially. If somebody comes through the door, you don't want the man thinking, "Oh, I'm scared." You want him to innately respond. To have that initial ability for a man to be violent, you have to teach a man violence, because we live in a world that is violent. And you don't want the man to be lacking the innate ability to be violent, because all men don't deal with that same wavelength. You understand what I'm saying? So you want your man to have some aggressiveness in him. You can't have your man not aggressive, right? You have to have some type of deterrent for your man, to deter other men from coming to take him and you and do whatever they want to, because we do live in a world where we're animals, where people think we're holy and we're spiritual and all that, but the Haramarket, the Sphinx in Kemet, is the head on the body of a beast. So that's what we're supposed to be. And you notice that head is relatively small compared to the body of that beast. We are beasts. We are animals, right? But we're controlled with that God body, that God mind, right? So we're supposed to be men in all forms, to be able to protect our home, to be able to sacrifice ourselves for our family, to go out and to work. These shoulders are broad for a reason. They are meant to work. These arms are big for a reason. They are meant to work. Our legs are big for a reason, because we are meant to work. Men are meant to work. We are meant to protect our women, right? Because think about, the most important thing in the entire world is for a person or family to procreate. If you're not procreating, you're not thriving, you're not surviving. That's the main purpose of life, to procreate, right? And what does that take? For 9 months, it takes a woman to create a baby. She's defenseless pretty much at that point in time. Then when the baby is new for the first couple of years, the baby can't fend for itself, and the woman is taking care of the baby. So you have if you have 3 kids, you got what, 12, 18 years where the woman is really in a defenseless posture, and it takes a man, a strong man, to be able to defend that and take care of that. And I mean, even though some people think men aren't doing their jobs, and to some degree we're not, but we can address that again later, because it's also part of what we have to correct in terms of manhood. But we don't want our men to be soft and not to be aggressive to some degree. And so that's the destruction of the black family. You've got feminism that has attacked manhood. You've got men feeling like they can't be men. They have to tippy toe around certain things. We're not supposed to be aggressive, which is not true, because the rest of this world is aggressive. Look, we saw Russia go into what's the country? Romania, not Romania. What is it? Yeah, they went into that other country, Ukraine, right? And they took over, like, yo, this is ours now. Even though it was Russia's in the beginning, but we don't want to get into it. But all that to say, you need your men to be able to protect your community. Um, because at some point we don't know what will happen in terms of people that we think are our friends can attack us again. We ain't gonna talk about that. That's a whole nother conversation. But who is to blame for the black family uh, being destroyed by this toxic femininity? Like, who is to blame? Well, we know that we have an enemy. We have folks that right now in 2024 are calling for the recolonization of Africa. You have uh, NGO organizations, contractors, military contractors, right now on the TV, on the YouTube, whatever it is, talking about going back in and recolonizing Africa. So one would think, what's the next progression from that? Can they say we want to reinstitute slavery? What are we able to do as a people to defend ourselves globally from the re-enslavement of our race? Nothing. For the most part, we're not creating weapons. We're not trained. We're not even thinking to that nature. So all that to say, ultimately, the enemy is responsible, but the primary person that's responsible is us, black men. So moving beyond the red pill, We have to take our own onus. They've used the same tactic for the last 500, 600 years, divide and conquer. Right? They would have been they would have been unable to come into Africa to seek out slaves or to seek out Africans to enslave if we had not been complacent and a part of it. Now we can't. The ancestors didn't know what the kind of slavery the white folks was going to do. It was, slavery was a common thing. We understand that, but it was a divide and conquer strategy that has worked for the past 500, 600 years on Black communities globally, and it is the same strategy that's going on right now. It's a different perpetrator right now. Right now, with the perpetrators, we call it feminism, but it's the same thing: divide and conquer, divide and conquer. So ultimately, it is our responsibility as Black men, as African men, to reestablish our communities by any means necessary, as Malcolm would say. Well, as Malcolm would say. So that means for men who often placate to women, they go along to get along. We're not speaking strongly and proudly about what we believe and what's necessary. So in order to rebuild our communities, we have to, as Malcolm would say, keep it plain. We have to stick our broad chest out and become responsible and have ownership for our communities. Again, that means taking care of our children, loving our wives, our women, but not taking the BS, not taking the disrespect, not taking the all this other stuff with the senseless uses of money. I mean, you have people that are how- why are you how are you even asking the person to take you on a three, $400 date, and you don't have any savings. You don't own your own home. You don't own any real estate. You don't have any investments, right? It takes a focused man and woman to rebuild our communities, but that's going to have to start with us because I'm a man. So of course, you want to make a change. Michael Jackson said, "Look in the mirror." Right? I'm quoting everybody today.
Yeah.
I'm quoting Malcolm. I'm quoting Michael. But anyway, we got to look in the mirror. It's all on us at this point in time, right? If we want to be better, if we want to see the better outcome for a better community, we have to be better. So I also said this could be called the toxic masculinity, destruction of uh, the Black family. I always say this, right? I remember I was on the college campus 1990, right? Or 1989. I came back to college, Maryland Eastern Shore, and everybody was playing this NWA music. And I'm like, what is this? F the police. F F police, right? And I never got down with really that vibe, right? And it got, we did have Luke in high school, and we had, hey, yeah, baby, and we did have that kind of music back in the day, right? And we know blue music goes back to the 30s and 20s. It's not a new thing, but what changed was our discretion behind it, right? We might have had curse words in our music, but we played that curse words in our music with our headphones on. When we pulled up, we rolled up to the corner and you saw somebody's grandmother on the corner, you turned it down, but now it's just everywhere. There's no discretion, there's no respect for folks. You can hear the worst, most vulgar music out in the streets now. But that started with us, Gen X, with that type of music. We embraced it. Anybody know me know like I did buy a Biggie Smalls album once. Now I don't want to people know music is music and I get you. But what we feed our mind is what we become. What we feed our minds is what we become. So we talked about the bees and the hoes and this and all this materialization as men, and now the women have 30 years later taken on the same characteristics. So we, as the head, we showed bad examples, and now our women have taken on our characteristics. So again, we want to change, we have to change ourselves. And God bless, Lord's will, the women will again follow suit and follow the lead that the man will provide. So that is what I believe our path forward is. Men must be men. Men must be proud, masculine men. We, wide at the shoulders, narrow at the hips. We have to be men. And this is how I believe we rebuild our families. And oftentimes, it's not by arguing or debating with a woman. It's not by arguing or debating with a woman. It is simply by being your masculine self. Because if you're being your masculine self, a masculine woman cannot exist in the same space as you. One of my teachers, Master Nitsuyama, right? He's a tantric master. He said this 15, 20 years ago. He said the planet is lacking the true feminine attribute. So what he means by that is because our God is now money, right? If money is your God, then everybody is working to serve that God. They're working to earn money, which means you have a hyper competitive culture. Hyper competitive culture breeds masculine energy. If the God is to obtain the if the God is the money, and to obtain that God you want to get money, you have to become aggressive. You have to have masculine attributes. So the feminine attribute, you can put as much weave, perm, and Botox and BBLs you want. That is not what the feminine is. That's all that stuff that we call feminine. That could just be a trans person doing the same thing. It's not femininity. It's dressing up in a feminine way, but it's not real. Femininity is soft, right? Femininity is the more nurturing aspect, and the planet is devoid of the feminine aspect. At least in the Western cultures, we now value the masculine aspect to be aggressive, and that's doing the planet a disservice. We need men to be men, so that the women then can feel comfortable enough to be women, to be a woman, to be feminine, to be all the things that we want them to be. So that's really the end of my few bullet points here. There's a lot. Each one of these bullet points has an hour discussion behind it, and I apologize if I ran through some things. But we know what the problem is with femininity. It started off as a good thing, right? Just to give women rights, but there's been an overcorrection to where now there's a superiority theme in the culture to make men not want to be men. Some men have responded to that by not being men, and the only way to fix it is by men becoming men again. So, brothers and sisters, thanks for listening. Peace. God bless. And big up Reality Speaks, Soul
Yeah,
Vibers Nation.
yeah. We still here.
Yes,
We still
sir.
here, family. So you know what I mean. We got now. Let's go questions. So we want any questions that y'all may have. We want you, and if you would like to join the link, you know what I'm saying. Just let me know that you want to send the link so that we can have you in. But let's go into discussion mode with this right here. So, um, here you say quite a few times that you know what I mean. It's about men being men. So what exactly is a man being a man in 2024? What is that? What does that look like? A man being a man.
So the first principle of manhood is to create order out of chaos. If you look at the world, the world is essentially feminine, right? Every child at conception, is feminine. I forget the chromosome, but at some point, it's the X or the Y kicks in, and the zygote or whatever it's called becomes a man, right? So life is essentially feminine. Life on this planet is essentially feminine. Life only creates enough men or enough males in any species to balance things off. You'll have enough male lions just to repopulate the population. You have just enough men to repopulate the population for whatever reason. If men die in wars, if we are subject to greater birth defect, whatever. If men take more risk, whatever it is, by the time we reach the age of majority, typically there are more women than men, right? So men, the first principle of manhood is to create order out of chaos. What is that? Okay, so you have a woman, you have a wife, and we're living in the jungle. We got the jungle. What does a man do? Man is going to say, let me go cut down these trees, let me build a shelter. Man is going to say, let me go figure out a way to collect water. Man is going to say, let me figure out a way to harvest some food for the family. So we create order out of chaos because what is the most fertile part of the planet? Now, I've been in the jungle. I actually have a home in the jungle, and I mean real jungle where you walk in that joint and you can't see the sun. A jungle has the most abundant life. You got the canopy and the birds and insects and snakes all the way down to the microscopic stuff in the soil. So a jungle has lots of life, but it's chaos. There's stuff going on everywhere. So the male principle is to create order out of that chaos. The creation of the world came from the I am that I am uttering I am. And we created order out of the chaos that existed before the cosmos. I mean, we get into some comedic stuff, but the principle of masculinity asserts order out of chaos. So, with that principle, you can look at everything around you and ascribe, how am I as a man going to create order out of chaos? Well, the first thing I need to do is to be able to take care of myself, right? So, the primary principle we should first indulge in is self preservation and self development, because I need to be able to take care of myself so that I can go out and create order out of chaos. I don't want to go out and become part of the chaos in the world, which is what a lot of our men do. We are just talking about the bike boys.
Right.
They love the chaos.
Right.
They feel seen throughout the chaos. That is not a masculine principle.
Mm.
We want to create order out of chaos. So the first way you have to figure out is how you're going to survive. So as a man, you must be able to obtain resources to survive. Back in the day, that might have been an apprenticeship. Big up, big up, big up the barbershop. Back in the day, it would have been an apprenticeship to learn a skill or a trade. Today, it might be university to learn a skill or a trade or a profession. Whatever it is, you've got to be able to secure yourself by ways and means of gaining resource. Call it money. It could be relationships. You know, I value myself as a man. I'm a negotiator. It's not all about the money I have in my pocket. It's about my relationships. I have relationships with people that know that I'm a good dude. If I ask for a favor, I get that, right? So it's also about a man's ability to resources, even if it's not money. It could be favors, it could be loans, it could be whatever. It could be just getting somebody that you like. Jabari is great at that. He knows people that know how to do everything. He'll he'll negotiate. He'll reason with them. Yo, I need. Can you come and do this, Lord? That's why I'm here right now. Because he has a resource, and when he reaches out, he can touch people, and people know he's doing something good, so that they want to help him. So a man has to have a ability to gain some type of resource, right, to take care of himself and to ultimately take care of his family. That's the number one thing. Then once he has those resources, he's got to be able to protect it, right, and know what that means. That's not necessarily a violent thing. That means knowing, if you lived out in the wilderness again, that means, knowing not to build your house low into a valley where it will flood. It might mean not setting your house up where snakes can get in. It means a lot of things, but to know how to protect your resources and your community, right? And then once you've established those basic kinds of things, you can begin to work on the different tasks that it takes to create order out of the chaos we currently see in our communities. So I think that's the most major principle of manhood: create order where chaos exists. And that means by whatever means necessary to do that.
So how do you do that in today's time when, okay, man creates order? You know what I'm saying? Okay, man, he meets a woman today. You know what I'm saying? And in today's time, she like, well, I got order. I got my stuff already, and then he got his stuff. So how does what happens there? You know what I'm saying? Like, so far as a man being a man meets a woman, she already has her stuff. I guess he already has his stuff, you know what I mean? So how does that, because now what women are saying is that, like, I already got you. I got, like, I don't need you to come in and bring order, because I pretty much already got order, so how does that work?
Well, I would say the woman probably does not have order. She probably has some
Okay,
resources.
research.
I would say she probably has resources for the most part. Women, I've had women come to me simply for the fact of being a rational person, a person that can strategize step A, step B, step C to get where you need to go. Oftentimes, people in general, but oftentimes women have so many stimulus coming to them, they often can't drill down to the one to make the decision to begin to move. And so they value a man's practicality, a man's ability to lay things out and to, we see we want to build a brick building, but all we see is a big pile of bricks. A man knows you take one brick, you lay it down, take the next brick, you lay it down. So it's the basic principle of being able to lay something out to strategize. I think that is a masculine principle. We have all men and women have that kind of principle, but primarily to address your question, a man cannot be worried about a woman. A man develops his value, and the woman that is meant for him will value what he brings. So another principle is not to be too thirsty. You know what I mean? You want to impress a woman or whatever, whatever. You have to stand on principle. You have to stand on what you are. And the woman that'll be for you may not be this glamoury, glitzy woman that you want, but the woman that's right for you is the woman that will recognize what you bring as a man. Example for myself. I graduated from school. I lived at home, saved my money. I bought a house. I never had an apartment. Once I had that house on Juneway, I lived downstairs in one room, rented out the upstairs to get income, right? So I think my mortgage was $400. I charged $350 for upstairs. So I only had to come up with $50 a month.
Mm.
With that ability, I was able to be free. I can start my business. I can be an entrepreneur. I can be a free man. So a man cannot be a slave. So we have to figure out ways to economically be free from the system, which means sometimes we can't do all this stuff. I mean, I'm well employed, but I got on regular sweatpants, regular shirt, little $50 chain, right? I don't have to put my money into that stuff because I put my money into things that will help me do what? Help me gain resources and help me secure my family and the folks that I rock with, that I deal with. So a man can't be worried about the woman that does not see his benefit, right? He has to be who he is meant to be. A man is supposed to have the calling to the Most High and what his mission is, and stick with that mission. Not to be around here sweating women who don't see his value, because there is a woman that will see your value. So yeah, you just got to recognize what your value is, stick to your principles, and not be distrayed by big booty Judy.
So is it to say that, are you saying that I guess in Kemet in ancient Africa, I guess men and women were portrayed side by side on a throne, you know what I'm saying, where
Mhm.
they shared actual rulership, in that society. Is that basically what you saying? I mean, like, so far as, I guess, the the furthering of the black family, what I mean, and I guess healing the black family. Should that be that way? Because I know it was portrayed in ancient Kemet like that, but was it really that way? Was it men and women on the throne?
Yeah, it is that way. It's currently that way in Africa. If you uh, so you know, I've probably almost dated more African women than I have African American women. I mean, not really, but I've dated women from Zambia, from Kenya, from Ghana, from like all over the continent. And so I really did the culture, right? And so the gender role piece is true, right? We have gender roles, but that does not mean that one role is greater than the other. It
Right.
simply means that they're complementary. So in Kemet, you will often see the king, the Nkosi, right, with the woman behind him or beside him, because she is his complement, his power. For every ancient Kemetan god, there is a goddess. So we understand that the duality of life that takes, in order to live and to thrive and to prosper, you need both men and women. So even though the male may have the final say in something, it's also in alignment with his queen. There's a book, The Teachings of Ptah.
Mm-hmm.
And in that book, it talks about how to treat your woman gently. This is book this these writings are 4,000 years old, and even back then they talked about how to be gentle with your woman, how not to stir her eye, and the mystic nature of womanhood. So even back then, they were dealing with, I think, Baba Barashango called it Sister Sapphire, peace be upon him.
Yes.
Sister Sapphire.
Mm-hmm.
So black women, to some degree, probably always had a little bit of the neck roll in them. But that neck roll we saw in private, and that's where the man and woman come together to work it out, right? Because we both had to realize that it took both of us to survive. The black man is not a tyrant. You know what I mean? He is a partner, but he's also respected and given that final say in terms of how things go. Because ultimately, he's he's respected as the representative of God. I've said this before. The Amen that Christians pray to, the Amin that the Muslims in their prayer with, is praying to Amen, the God of ancient Kemet. Amen means he that is hidden, he that is unseen. So the God principle is known as the unseen principle, right? And Ra, or the feminine principle, is seen in creation. So we've always understood that it takes both, but we pray to Amen, the unseen, to bring to fruition the things that we want. So men are responsible for bringing to fruition what the woman desires to some aspect, right? But you have to choose the right woman and make sure there's compatibility and complementarity in terms of the woman you choose. So yeah, we're supposed to reign as king and queen, God and goddess both together.
Got you, got you. Um, so let's come forward a little bit into the, I guess, the 1900s, you know what I mean, into the 20s, the 30s, I guess 40s, somewhere in there. And just look at the black family in those times. I mean, 50s, 60s, or whatever. And this is where a lot of people have problems. What's more healthy? You know what I mean? And is it back in those times or 2024 right now, so far as relationships and our family? What do you think the time period is more healthy back in the day? Because this is where a lot of people are rebelling from. Like even a lot of women. They're like, oh no, we ain't going back to them days. You know what I mean? Men, like you said, color purple. Oh, they used to beat them women. They used to and they would have a whole nother family over here and this, that, and the other. And they used to abuse the children, you know, and what you know what I mean? What do you think? What's more healthy back in the day or 20 now 2024?
So we have to look at a couple of things. We can't look at the totality of it and say we want to go back because clearly we had Jim Crow and segregation and all those other things. We had black people being lynched. Now one could also say, if we look at it as a percentage, and I've not done this research. This will be an interesting part.
Right.
I'm about to blow your head with this one. If we had, if let's say there was a million black people back in 1950,
Okay.
right? And out of the million black people, if you had 10,000 being lynched, right, and maybe had 500 that were being killed through black on black violence, right? So let's say we had that same million people today. Hardly any people are being lynched. You got the police doing what they do, but is black on black violence more deadly than the lynching was? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's some real stuff.
Right.
Like, so are we better?
Right.
I mean, I don't know. We have more wealth, right? We have more freedom, but is black life actually more safe now than it was then? I don't know.
Or
But
do we have more wealth now? I
I,
mean,
I mean, we,
you
we
know,
I think we have more wealth. We have less. We have more money, but we have less wealth. I get what you're saying.
right.
So, back then we had farmlands, we had businesses, we had institutions. Now we have jobs.
Right.
So yeah, that I mean, it's a lot we could look at and say,
Right.
are we really better off? You right, good point. Um, but I clearly I don't think we want to go back to that. So it's like we need to correct where we are now, which and one thing that happened after, of course, integration, the wealth left the black community. We followed behind, and this is not being anti-Semitic, whatever, but you'll see the history of Baltimore. You had white flight, then you had Jewish flight, right? And so every place that white folks moved, the Jews moved, and the whites kept moving. The Jews kept moving, and the blacks followed. You could follow them right up West Baltimore, right? The people used to dog East Baltimore because that was the worker part
Right.
of the city. I don't know if you know that or not. I did that school
Yeah.
down by St. Wenceslaw.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the Henderson Hopkins School. And doing that school, building that school, we had to research those houses, real small alley houses, and we found out that those houses were specifically built for immigrants coming from Europe, from a certain particular part of Europe, and they were meant to be workers. And
Right.
so the black folks, you know, East Baltimore and South Baltimore were the worker part of the housing, and as you went north and west is where the more affluent folks went. And
Right.
you'll see the white folks move that way,
Yeah.
then the Jewish folks followed them, and then the
Mm-hmm.
blacks folks followed them. So our wealth left the community, following behind, other folks.
But bro,
And
yeah.
and so it was a good thing that we had the choice to be able to move different places. but then our communities were left to be, ghettos. All the wealth and the brain trust was taken out of the community. So, I mean, there's so many nuances to it. Clearly, I think we're in a better position now to change because we are globally reconnected to Africa. Africa is the greatest resource on the planet. Um, I think the salvation of the planet will come from Black folks in America realigning themselves with Africa and taking the knowledge that we have to be able to run the systems that the Western culture has created, take that back home, and then we will be like the Chinese are now. We'll be that 100 years from now. But it takes foresight, it takes planning, and it takes stick to itiveness, and it takes men being men to also reset the tone. Back then, when we were coming up, Jabari, we had a balance of things. We had KRS One, we had Boogie, we had all the conscious rap. That's how I even got to college, really listening to Boogie Down Productions, going to see Spike Lee movies, and seeing, I didn't know what a HBC was. Even though Morgan State was right there, right up street from my high school, I thought it was just a college with Black people because it was in Baltimore.
Yeah.
I didn't know that there was such a thing as
Yeah.
a historically Black university or college. And so we don't have that now. We don't
I,
have that conscious cult. And you can't just say Kendrick and J. Cole. I mean,
yeah.
you've got a couple people out there that are doing it, but it's the consciousness is not popular anymore.
I argue that as brother Over Shaka said, that our families were stronger even in enslavement
Oh yeah,
than they are today in a
yeah.
day's
Oh,
time.
no doubt.
Let's be real
I
clear.
agree. I agree.
Let's be real clear. It definitely is the lack of the masculine energy right now. You know what I'm saying? Within our families, within our household, that's turned the family down. Right? I'm not blaming the man or the woman. I'm saying that they not getting along with each other. And what's happening is a lot of these women are raising the children by themselves. And that alone, without the man's energy being present, the way that it needs to be, you know what I'm saying, is a lack of discipline. When I look back at my uncles, my great uncles, I look back at those guys, man, them guys, I mean, man, we had we always got problems. This is life. Every generation gonna have problems. But them guys, they were taught to be serious. They when they dressed, I mean, they had a suit, you know what I mean, pretty much a suit on or a shirt and some pants on because they were taught to be serious. They had a disciplined mindset, you know what I'm saying, from their father, you know what I mean, who may have been a little extra at times, but however, it was, hey, didn't I tell you get down there and do such, such, and such? You know what I mean? But that's why a lot of people, even in our time, put their children in the military because they wanted them to have some kind of discipline. Now, what a lot of us did when we were coming up, I played sports. And those coaches were giving us like that military type of, you know what I mean? Didn't I tell y'all hitting the, you doing right? Get around that backstop 3 times around the backstop. But that taught discipline. You know what I'm saying? And from men and from women lack that today. And now it's called toxic masculinity when men even step up and be like, hey, look, you need to do this, you need to do that. But and so what's happening is we're raising a lot of young men that's super soft. And when I say super soft, I'm talking about just in their action. You know what I'm saying? They can't take to be humble because I mean, even for my grandmother and my uncle and all, they would get on me. I ain't say a word. You know what I mean? Yeah, every now and again I might mumble something from my mouth, but you know what I'm saying? Like more so with my mom, because I knew I can get away with mom a little bit more. But grandma and the elders, you know, what I mean, boy, didn't I tell you get up them steps? You know, you walk away from, you know what I'm saying, and you knew what it was. So it's like there's this lack of discipline, and I would say that organizations now you only see present like the Nation of Islam, who teach their young men how to drill, how to be in step. But you know what I mean, with that same discipline, a lot of people learning it through sports and different things of that nature. Because I think every black child should be a part of, some kind of sport, checker team, something. They got to learn discipline and how to work with others in general. You know what I'm saying? And so those things need to be added on. While we have internet and we have TikTok, who's really raising our children with this philosophy that's killing our babies. So you're talking about why we killing each other? It's the man that the presence of the masculine energy being out of those homes. No blame. I'm not blaming the man or the woman. I'm blaming the system that we actually living in. But we got to correct that if we're going to make some changes, because I argue with people too much who like, no, they was too hard back in the day. No, I beg to differ, man. You know what I'm saying? People being tough on me is what made me be who I am today. When I was laying up around mommy, and I was, we moved over to the east side, and I was laid up on her. When my uncle moved in there, He saw that. He said, "Hey, look, nah, you want him to be, you want him to be soft? Look, he's sleeping upstairs with you. He moving down in the basement with me. He made me get a bed. I was down in the basement with him, and he taught me. He taught me how to fight. He taught me logic. You know what I'm saying? But I needed that because other than that, I would have been laid up in her feminine energy. You feel what I'm saying? But that was something that was necessary. So I'm just saying that, like, I will debate people because we had the debate on the Temple Talk the other day. You know what I'm saying? And we talk about, they was talking about, discipline and back in the old days and all. And I was pretty much in the out, people, they was all on me when I was talking about, nah, our people need, they need discipline, man.
Yeah,
You know?
we definitely. So when you talk about the family, yeah, we had tighter families, definitely, because we had to. Like when we talked about, when civil rights passed and all that stuff, we were together because we had to be,
Exactly.
right? And so it's that same thing, a lack of self love, so that once we got the choice to be away from each other, that's what we chose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that also comes from self love and other things, and also an inability to control our communities because we know drugs and guns don't come from us; that those things are placed. So we have been continually fucked with. Excuse my French.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
when we get organizations like the Black Panthers, organizations like the Nation of Islam, we're infiltrated,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we know that the FBI and the New York City Police Department killed Malcolm, but they used the hands of black men to do it.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
So we're infiltrated. We have been fucked with. Even when people start talking about, oh, well, you just pick yourself up by your bootstraps. Well, we do. And when we pick ourselves up from our bootstraps and we start to get a little bit going on, we become a threat to the greater culture. And they rose with us. They Black Wall Street us. They Fred Hampton us.
Yeah.
So we can't even talk that whole thing, which is why that's a whole nother level of the struggle. We need to just get our families together first, and then we start to build the nation from there. Like me, you know, Malcolm X is one of my saviors, I would call him. But even now, as an adult, I recognize his failure. I even recognize that when you and I were coming up, because I saw in you the Spitfire Malcolm X energy,
Right.
and I even though I wasn't Elijah Muhammad, I knew the lesson from that is that I cannot try to control somebody else. So, like, instead of Elijah letting Malcolm go do his thing and encouraging him to be a different kind of leader, trying to control him, they created all the acrimony and then destroyed the nation for a while. That's why I learned that lesson, that when you were coming up and you were focused on another young organization, I didn't try to control you. Like, nah, man, stay with the study group. Let's do.
Right.
No, I said I need to help him build his thing, which is a lesson I learned from history.
Right.
Right. And so that's how we've got to be. We've got to learn those lessons and help to create other leaders and such. But yeah, we definitely were tighter back then because we had to be, right?
Right.
And so no, yeah, no doubt. Our families were women, even though my mother was a nurse and my father was a longshoreman, they both were working. People stayed together. They didn't just stay together because they
That's right.
had to. They stayed together because they knew it was the best thing to do. It's what the culture promoted. Now our culture promotes, you know, ninjas and hoes.
Right.
We that's what the culture promotes. So we has been also have to correct our culture. We gotta call out that the foul culture that we see and continuing hitting those notes. If we want women that are going to be a certain way, we can't date the chicks that are out here doing all this ratchet stuff. We need the young brothers that are coming up to be like, I'm fine, I got it all down. But you know what, sister? I can't deal with you in the state you are. They gotta be real about it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And also have discipline to not just be chasing some ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean, and we got to teach different, man, because coming up, we really got to teach them different. I mean, at one point, we would brag about, how many women we had and this, that, and the other. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? And I've done it in the past, but I bet you one thing coming up now. I bet you I won't be teaching Lil Jabari about running around and getting, you know what I mean, and having this, and you know what I mean. And then some people, you know what I'm saying, like women talk about a whole phase for women. That is destructive.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? You cannot teach, you know what I'm saying, like women to have a whole. Do you know what can happen in a whole phase? Whole phase, you can have a couple children. You know what I'm saying? Then you wind up again with that dynamic of, what I mean, being separated because you didn't been sleeping with men and got pregnant, and then you don't like this guy, you don't even know him. You know what I'm saying? And
and,
then there again is the separation from a child being with the masculine energy or diseases.
and that's the femininity. That's the feminism thing, because they try to say men and women are equal. Things that men can do, women can do. Yeah, we both can go out and have useless sex. That's true. But what's the ramification of that? I think women take the the body count issue, or you know, if a guy hit it and quit it, a woman is going to be upset about that, right?
Yeah,
And that psychological effect that happens to women, they are more emotional than us. I mean, that's just pure and simple. So the impact of that type of lifestyle is much, much worse to a woman. I think somebody said that even the DNA of a man stays in a woman for years,
yeah, I heard that.
for years,
I
like
heard that.
through the ejaculation.
I
And
mean,
we
but
we can't. That's like again, these shoulders are built for weight. A woman is not meant to have partners like a man. And that's why it takes 9 months for her gestation. That's why we make billions and millions of sperm a week, billions and millions of sperm a month for one egg.
right,
That shows you what God intended. He didn't intend, she didn't intend. We'll say God, he, she. We'll call her she. That way, come back to your feminist. The goddess did not intend for women to be out here doing this thing. That's why they only create one egg. But we create millions of sperm because we are supposed to be out. And that's that's another primary issue to deal with manhood. I will say this. I have been a professed polygamist since 1995, right?
okay,
Doesn't mean I always have multiple women. I don't. I'm primarily functioning as a monogamous man, but I say this to women because I think for the most part, for most men, monogamy is not your true nature. And I think we have to stop the lie about telling women that we're going to only sleep with them for the rest of our life or for whatever and breaking their heart. I think if men said, look, straight up, I will take care of you. I will be your husband. I will be blah blah blah, and I will be faithful to you. But when I'm faithful, I mean I'm going to be faithfully taking care of you and faithfully caring for you and faithfully loving you. It has nothing to do with what I do with another woman.
right.
And that's the simple thing that I've said again since I was 25. And I don't think I've lacked for female companionship
Well, let me just say this for the
or
record.
wives.
I'm not a polygamist. I am not a but for those that it works for, you feel what I'm saying? Let it work for them. And I do think that from our grandfathers in the past and those different things, you know what I'm saying? If it was something that was more upfront that people knew about, you know what I'm saying? Because it was situations where, your grandfather would have a whole nother family in Hagerstown, and he would, you know
But
what I
see,
mean?
here's where the women lose. When it's just booty calls, they
Right,
don't get any real resources from that.
right,
If it's a legitimate, recognized by the community relationship, the man has to step up. But when everything is hidden, the woman gets no resources from that. She's happy with being the side chick,
right.
which is not righteous. And like I said, even though that's what I profess in my relationships, I don't really function as that. I mean, I've been married, I've had monogamous relationships, but I know my way also, and I've always been open with what my way is. And if I'm going to engage another woman, I'm not going to engage another woman as just getting some ass in the side. There must be something I want to develop, even if it's for a short term time. But I think if that's who you are
Yeah,
as a man, you need to be a man and be honest about who you are
yeah.
and stand on that, so you're not breaking a bunch of hearts. You will
T-
find, honestly, men, you will find that a woman might talk a lot of stuff and she might give you a lot of that head roll crap, but there are women out there that are for you, that will help you to work and to build. And this is not all about sex, people. It's about building families. If a man, let me give you this one story, and I got to get ready to bounce. Um, there was a guy that graduated a year behind me that worked for the same company I worked for, and I trained him, right? And so I left the company, and about 10 years later, he started his own business, right? Him and another guy from the company we worked for. This was a company called Whiting Turner, and him and his partner started a successful business that is now worth several $100 million, right?
uh-huh.
And so I asked him, how were you guys so successful? He said, we married right. Both of them married lawyers or women that had a nice profession where they could take every dime from their business and reinvest in the business for the first 5, 6, 7 years. Once they got rolling, their wives didn't have to work no more.
Mm,
So it's that partnership. So if you get with the right woman or women, a man is supposed to be able to take what the woman does and organize that thing to be a powerful unit. So nation building is really about men creating order out of chaos. So if you see a woman that's in this world in chaos that has great potential, I believe it is our role as men to put that woman within the headship of a home of a man and to make that thing do what it's most optimally supposed to do. I think that's one reason why we fail, because we believe that we can have women in this community without men, and that's not going to happen. It's going to cause chaos.
Right.
So every woman, every person needs to be within the family structure. Period.
But I do think we do with our sons and our nephews and all. We have to teach them a level of discipline, and you know what I'm saying. You know, a level of discipline, and not to have, I guess, what you call, you know what I'm saying, to go and freak off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
Because there's so many brothers, man, who've done that, who gotten all kinds of diseases and got 6 or 7 baby mamas, which ain't good either, because you start your life off, you know what I'm saying, like, and you in child support. You can never really get ahead because you got like 3 or 4 different women taking you to child support. That's not discipline, you know what I'm saying? And it's not, you know what I mean? So we gotta do better with that, you know what I'm saying, and training up our young people and with our young. So we got the work ahead of us, and we just beginning with this subject. I know, you know what I'm saying, in general, but we got a lot to talk about, so let me close you out because I know you said you gotta get out of here.
yeah. I ain't had no dinner yet.
Say it again.
I ain't had no dinner yet. I was going to go get some fish, but I think Terrence probably closed now. Yeah, they probably. Oh yeah.
It is. It is. Yeah, so thank you for joining us here today. We appreciate my good brother for coming up here and spreading some words of wisdom. Some things you agree with, some things you might not agree with, but we here. We're gonna have more people to come on and talk about the other side of the argument, but it's definitely clear. I think that we have to teach our people to be disciplined, and we got to come together. Black men got to come together more now, what I mean, even going through these phases of midlife crises and all, because as so-called conscious men, we really are individuals. You know what I'm saying? Like we got all this information and knowledge, but a lot of us are not really in organizations anymore. And we just kind of like running around and we just handle stuff by ourselves most of the time. A lot of times. So we don't come together with brothers because and we just handle it ourselves. So we got to come together more as brothers and still form brotherhoods and stuff like that. I know some people part of fraternities and different things of that nature. You know what I'm saying? They go as far as they go, but we still got to come together and deal with each other. And we still got some cleaning up to do in our community. So we thank you for joining us, and we'll be back next week continuing to do this through Reality Speaks. We thank you and peace.